Hey, Miranda, so good to have you on today. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. My name is Miranda Wojciechowski. I am currently a grant writer and development specialist at an educational nonprofit called the Language Conservancy here in Bloomington, Indiana. I'm also a PhD candidate at Indiana University Department of English.
And tell us a little bit about more about the organization that you work with.
So we are an educational nonprofit that is focused on creating resources and programming around reawakening endangered languages around the world. We work specifically a lot with Indigenous First Nations and Aboriginal languages and communities, and we provide a lot of technical support for dictionary creation and making textbooks, classroom materials, summer institutes, language classes, basically anything that you can think of. We basically partner with our tribal nations and work out together what sort of unique solutions they want to put in place for their programming. And in our department, often what we'll try to do is put together project proposals and grant proposals so that we can get the project fully funded so that the tribal nations and First Nations don't have to pay for the contracted services. And that's sort of a free of charge thing that we throw in with the program. Our grants department works with a bunch of different groups to get those projects started, which is really exciting and lots of fun.
All right, that's very cool. And how big is the organization that you're currently working with?
So it's a pretty small core group of employees. Our grants department is currently 3 people, and overall the employees are like, I would say about 20 to 30 total employees, and then some contractors for various projects.
And one of the things that I would love to hear is, how you got into the world of grant writing, and particularly that step of landing your first job within grant writing, as many people watching this video are looking to transition to grant writing for the first time, and having a better idea of how that transition can occur can really help them out.
Right. Well, as you mentioned before, there's a lot of different paths to grant writing, and most of them are pretty unusual. It's not necessarily linear for a lot of us. And my path was a bit unusual because I kind of pivoted mid-career from doing university teaching to grant writing. And it actually worked out pretty neatly. The skill set was almost exactly the same, and I never thought of grant writing before. But as a graduate student, even at a fully funded program, you're always having to write grants and fellowships to fund your own research. And so I was able to leverage that experience getting funding for my own projects into an entry-level grant writing position to get other people started on their projects. Um, and like I said, humanities grant students are a weirdly perfect skill set fit with grant writing. We do a lot of juggling research and narrativizing our findings and the impact of our work for different audiences. We manage a lot of different deadlines and priorities. And in my role at the educational nonprofit, I work with a lot of language teachers, people in education, school administrators, people who work at cultural centers. So my own experiences in education have actually been a really nice asset for that kind of work.
Oh, hey, that makes it much more seamless transition. And, I think part of, what people sometimes should be looking for is like, what are the resources and what knowledge do you already know that can make sometimes an easier transition, right? Um,
Hmm.
and
Absolutely.
yeah, would love to hear, you had mentioned the word skills. And when you look at the skills needed to be successful at grant writing, what skills come to mind for you?
So there's the traditional skill set of researching because you have to be able to research funding opportunities, critical reading because the federal funding announcements are just a whole book in and of themselves with lots of different details and eligibility requirements and different things to unpack. Um, Writing, but in a, like you said, very technical way. There's a certain formula to it. You need to be able to articulate very technical project timelines and budget requirements. But also my favorite part of the writing is being able to narrativize like what sort of impact the project will have on a community. So it's really important to be able to synthesize lots of different numbers and create a story from them in the grant writing. And then there's the sort of boring technical side where you have to be able to do, basic budget calculations and talk to people about how to develop projects, organize a bunch of different conflicting deadlines.
And I think when people are looking to adopt some of these skills, like you said, there are going to be some challenges, like one, setting expectations, working with conflicting deadlines. And I think the biggest thing that helps with a lot of these is, one, is finding a good organization that you can align with good people. So
Yeah.
if someone's watching this video and they're trying to understand, what's going to make me happy in terms of finding a grant writing job that I'm going to enjoy.
Hmm.
And oftentimes people get into grant writing because they want to work for a nonprofit and they're saying, hey, I feel like this is a role where I can make an impact, but they don't get specific enough, right? I think
Hmm.
they start with the idea of a nonprofit being very glamorous, and then trying to work down and making it more specific is something that often occurs a little bit, I think, too late.
Hmm.
What would you say would help them align with finding a job in grant writing that they would enjoy?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different factors that go into finding a job that you'll enjoy in any industry. And the great thing with grant writing is there is a lot of flexibility in different types of employment situations you can get into with grant writing. So thinking about what sort of conditions, especially as a writer, some people like to write in, big coffee shops with lots of noise, or big open office environments with lots of noise. And some people just literally can't get anything done unless they're alone. So thinking about how you work and write best, are you going to be thriving more in an in-person office environment or more of a flexible remote type environment? Do you work best writing as a team? Because my particular role is very collaborative. Sometimes we're all just being chaotic in the same Google Doc all at once. Or are you somebody who likes to work, start a project individually, follow it all the way through, um, not really have much input until the feedback stage? And then it's also really important to determine like how important it is to you that your interests and goals kind of align with an organization's mission. So I really loved being in education because that's obviously kind of what I've built the rest of my life around. And so it made the transition really easy. And it's something that I'm really passionate about getting funding for. So that's very motivating. But some people are also really motivated by learning about completely new topics that they know nothing about, researching, challenging themselves. And so just sort of figuring out how important it is that you align yourself with an organization that it's already your area of expertise, or it's something you want to learn more about. A great way to do that is just to research mission statements. All nonprofits have them. Um, and also, there's consulting options available for grant writers. If you don't want to work for a specific nonprofit organization, you can work with a bunch of different partners. And our organization is kind of a happy medium because we work with a lot of partners to get projects funded. So I get the best of both worlds. But I guess those are some questions to ask yourself to figure out what kind of role would be a good fit and make you happy.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that formula of asking yourself hard questions to really get down to it. I think people try to avoid that, but it's what's going to give you the best answers at the end of the day. And you had mentioned Google Docs as one of the tools that you use to collaborate. I'd love to hear about some of the other tools that you may be using in the grant writing process
Mhm.
to work with your team members and just make your workflow more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said before, we're a pretty small nonprofit. We keep things pretty basic. So for collaborating, we work on Google Docs. Doing all our budgets, we like to just use Excel. Putting together files, we use Adobe software. And also another really tool that we love to use to organize sort of team tasks and see who's working on what part of what application and what's been done and what needs to be done. It's management software called Monday. And they even have a sort of template package directly for grants managers that you can just download. And it has, your schedule for the grants. You can create side items. So one person can do a budget and one person can work on sort of the abstract for the proposal. And you can divvy things up and keep track of deadlines and keep track of who's doing what. So that's a really good team collaboration tool that we like to use.
Hey, very cool. I think it's important to have team collaboration tools outside of, editors and like tools like Monday. It just
Mhm.
keeps everybody aligned, with goals and objectives.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and, one of the things that I would love to hear about, and I think this is different for um, each nonprofit in terms of where their industry is going.
Mhm.
But where do you see the future of grant writing going, whether that's industry specific for you and education or grant writing as a whole?
Right. So with the education grant writing industry, I've been noticing that there's a lot of opportunities around moving things digitally or remotely or hybrid with COVID, because there's just a real need for people to have flexible tools that they can use to educate in any sort of conditions that may pop up or continue to occur with the pandemic. So there's a lot of infrastructure based things for getting Wi-Fi and education. Ed tech is really big right now. Our organization has started to do a lot of different apps and e-learning software. So that's something that's really growing in education. I've also noticed that, especially with the pandemic, the amount of funding is really dramatically increasing from corporate foundations. And that's not really something that our nonprofit has traditionally looked at as a funding source. We typically do sort of government or private foundation funding sources. So it's really interesting to see corporations start more foundations and increase the amount of funding that they're allotting towards things like education. So that's exciting to see.
Hey, that's very cool. Yeah, it's interesting to know. And then one of the things that I'd love to hear, and you touched upon this a bit earlier, was some of the challenges that can occur within the grant writing process, whether that's collaborating, setting deadlines. It's not easy, you know, and
No.
if it is easy, sometimes it's wrong. So would love to hear your thoughts around some of the challenges that new grant writers can expect in the workplace.
Yeah, so grant writing is obviously a really important role in an organization, which is, double-edged sword because you keep everything afloat and you fund all these exciting new projects. But because of that, it's kind of an extremely high pressure, high performance environment. There's lots of deadlines, there's lots of pressure to make sure that you're putting together successful applications, both for yourself and for your partners, because you want to see these projects happen. You also have to have a really thick skin around rejections because, they say with your grant writing percentage, if you're not getting a healthy amount of rejections in your applications, that means you're not doing enough and you're not thinking creatively enough about what sources you're reaching out to. So just having to accept rejection as a daily part of the job, along with the successful proposals, you have to put as much out there as possible to get things fully funded. There's another way that being an academic comes in handy. We love getting rejected. So, and also another challenge is kind of organization dependent. But if you're working for an organization that hasn't been around for a long time, chances are they won't have developed sort of steady relationships with funders. You'll have to kind of strategize that from the ground up and build those relationships before you're able to get a lot of successful applications in. And so that's kind of another factor to think about in terms of challenges and how much you want to push yourself as a new writer. My department's been around for like 20 years, so we have some established relationships with a lot of different kinds of diverse funders, and that really takes some of the pressure off because when you're applying to those people that you'll get, usually, unless there's something wrong with that relationship, you'll get a certain amount annually. And so that can be really challenging. I know when you get your foot in the door at the brand new organization, it's exciting because you get a lot more responsibilities, but you also have that added challenge of trying to build yourself a set of funders that will be interested in the work that you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer that there's not enough emphasis placed on building new relationships with potential funders. I think it's just a huge skill to have. And I think many people think of grant writing as just a pure writing, job, and it's
Yeah,
just not the case.
not at all.
Yeah, so much of it is just understanding relationship building, and the better you can be at that is going to help tremendously. So let's say you're looking to add somebody to your team tomorrow and you're looking to hire someone, what type of person would you look for to join your team?
Hmm. Definitely somebody who is a lifelong learner, who's open to learning new things, because one of the best things you can do as a new team member or a new grant writer is to ask a million questions of absolutely everybody. The people who assume that they know everything right off the bat are the people who make a lot of mistakes and also, design projects that can't be done. So you need to be able to talk to the people who are going to execute these things, who have made it their life's work, ask a billion questions of your teammates, make people sick of you. Somebody who's just really curious and open to sort of learning new things, because not a lot of people grant writers and academics included know a lot about endangered languages that we're working with. So being able to be curious, be a collaborator, somebody who's really passionate, I think, about the mission is important for our particular organization, because it does tend to come across in your writing, whether or not you know a lot about the partners and are excited to get the project, and are able to really articulate exactly why it's important and why it has an impact is really important. So I guess we'd look for somebody who is a both sides of the brain person, somebody who really enjoys being curious and creative and doing the storytelling aspect, and somebody who's also able to juggle the numbers and do the budgets and create that kind of strategy that we need to balance our books.
Yeah, I think it's, someone who could use both sides of the brain, right? You got to be able to, I think, not categorize yourself in one area, but be able to do both parts is huge. And then, I know we've covered a lot today for people watching this video who are looking to break into grant writing and have a successful career there. Is there anything else that you can think of that would really help them out before we go?
Yeah, so I mean, doing things like this is really helpful for breaking into any new industry, reaching out to people, asking them to meet with you and talk to you about what they do and how they got into it. I think they call it informational interviews. It's a great way to build your network in a field if you're new to it, and to also sort of establish connections outside of a hiring process that may later help you in a hiring process, especially if you're breaking in. And then the other thing is, this is only kind of applicable to people who have another source of income as they're trying to transition careers, but there's a lot of great opportunities out there, especially if you're interested in nonprofit work, of doing volunteer grant writing for a local organization that you already sort of work with. I know there's a ton here locally who are always looking. I know a lot of members of my team still do volunteer grant writing alongside our job for different organizations around town. So that's a great way if you can't get in an entry-level position and you need that experience, because of course every entry-level position in any industry now is like 2 to 3 years experience right off the bat. That's a great way to get experience writing proposals and building up your portfolio and getting some good numbers on, look at how much money I've gotten for this organization. And I think obviously doing courses like what you're offering is really useful as well, to understand the basics and get some practice working on a proposal, getting feedback, things like that.
Hey, well, Miranda, thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you to everybody watching the video. And yeah, if people are interested in connecting with you, can they connect with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely.
So if you're
Please
watching this video, just go to the description below. Her LinkedIn profile will be right there and you can connect with her. And again, thank you for watching, and we'll rock and roll from here.
Thank you.